What is going on, guys? Broken Ronin here with another Jujutsu Kaisen explained video, and the topic of today's discussion is heavenly restriction. Now, the most concise way to explain a heavenly restriction before getting into the nitty-gritty details is essentially equating it to a contract that one is forced to abide by at birth that removes or handicaps one aspect of their physical capabilities in order to drastically increase the potency of another ability. The method in which people place heavenly restrictions on others is unknown, although based on some information I'll be bringing up later in the video, I would assume a sorcerer somehow has to form a binding contract with the baby still incubating in their mother and create the conditions before they are born. Gruesome, I know, but kinda does fit the overall dark theme of Jujutsu Kaisen, I guess. While the simplified, watered down version, it's possible that even with this explanation of heavenly restriction, you may still be a little bit confused. Comparing it to an involuntary Nen contract that happens when someone is born is also a very easy way to understand it if you are a fan of Hunter x Hunter. In the series, we are only aware of 3 heavenly restriction cases that have the outcomes directly stated or shown in detail, which kind of implies that the procedure isn't one extremely common within the world of Jujutsu Kaisen. The first character that introduces heavenly restriction is Kokichi Muta, more commonly known as Mekamaru. In chapter 38, Mekamaru explains not only what heavenly restrictions are in general, but also breaks down his own personal heavenly restriction, and I think that explaining his might be able to give you an even deeper understanding of the non-consensual give-and-take nature of heavenly restrictions. You see, Kokichi was born without a majority of his limbs and doesn't have the ability to feel anything below his waist. On top of this, he has been granted skin so fragile that moonlight could burn it and is always in a constant state of sharp pains. The lack of physical ability and the immense amount of discomfort and suffering that he has to go through is the binding part of the heavenly restriction. In exchange for this, he is granted above average levels of cursed energy in range that can span the entire nation of Japan, which based on the context of his heavenly restriction is probably something that is impossible, or at least near impossible, for any other character. While it does definitely have its advantages, this is in general a rather unfair trade if I do say so myself, and Kokichi himself believes this as he was thrust into this role unwillingly, and in his words would do anything if he could possibly change it. Using Mekamaru as an example, I think highlights heavenly restriction as a concept pretty clearly, and makes cases like Maki and Toji make even more sense in the context of their own restrictions and bindings. In chapter 42, Mai explains that Maki's heavenly restriction is almost the complete opposite of Mekamaru's. Instead of gaining a lot of cursed energy for a lack of physical ability, her cursed power was bound to very minimal levels, and she was granted beyond average physical strength, speed, and agility that far surpassed the realm of a normal, unenhanced human being. While a restriction that seems much more favorable to Maki, it does have its drawbacks of her not actually having natural resistances to curses because of her normal curse energy levels. She is also ostracized completely from her clan because they value curse techniques over anything else. And to top it all off, based off the final restriction of the next and final character I'll be talking about within this video, we know that she was born with an incomplete heavenly restriction and has to find a way to complete it in order to grant her more power. Now, the third and final example of heavenly restriction comes from a character that if you are a manga reader, you have to be familiar with, Toji Fushiguro. Toji's restrictions is the same as I described for Maki's, however, it is complete. Rather than just having low levels of cursed energy, Toji has none. Absolutely zero. The only one in the world of Jujutsu Kaisen to have zero cursed energy as well, up until about chapter 150 of the series. By completely eliminating his cursed energy, the physical strength that he got as a result sent his stats through the roof and even enhanced his base resistances and senses to be able to perceive cursed spirits and even have natural resistance to them, unlike Maki. The end result of such a binding made Toji such a unit that even special grade cursed spirits would fall prey to his strength easily, and special grade sorcerers considered him a superhuman. Out of them all, I'd definitely say that Toji had the most advantageous heavenly restriction initially, but they all have their own drawbacks that cause them to not just be a cheat code to easy strength. With that being said, that wraps up about everything you need to know about heavenly restriction. If you guys did enjoy this video and want to see more like this, make sure to subscribe and hit the bell so you're notified to my uploads. In any case, I hope you guys enjoyed this video, and as always, this is Broken Ronin, signing off.